Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's episode 7 now, of Fans of S.H.I.E.L.D. Joining me, of course, as always, we have right next to me in the column, Mr. Rob Stone. How you doing, Rob?
Hi, everybody. How you doing?
All right, and of course, on the far side there, from the East Coast himself, our own Don of Ice and Fire, Mr. Don Willie.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Oh, so glad to be back for another episode of Fans of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh yeah, really looking forward to this week. This was a fun episode. Again, I think probably in lists of bigness of the season of favorite episodes, this is, I don't think, probably going to rate near the top on a lot of them. But in regards to just a good time, I think that is one thing that this episode gave pretty much from beginning to end, with a little emotional bits, little grief stuck in there, I think, just to add some weight to it. So you've probably caught my full review. You might have gotten Rob's review, but of course, Don, we're going to lead off with you as always. Since you are our freshie, why don't you let us know your take on this week's episode?
So yeah, a bunch of 80s nostalgia. I pulled out the 80s style Punisher t-shirt for this one. But the thing about it, unfortunately, it didn't really seem to move the story along too much. We got the emotional bits with Mack and Deke and friendship. Must have the friendship. But maybe once we move along to the next few episodes, maybe this one will make more sense.
Mm-hmm.
But as it stands right now, I'm kind of like, it was cool to have all of the 80s references and all that, but other than that, I'm like, and then Max Beard. Oh.
I like that he let the beard go, but he kept shaving the head. There's a dedication of sorts to that.
But the beard just was like, I don't know if it's because they were playing on the 80s and how cheesy the 80s was that they made the beard look kind of cheesy. But I was like, oh my, wow. Like, I know a lot of guys with big beards, and it literally looked like they just took a bunch of cotton, dyed it black, and put it on his face.
Yeah. Well, maybe they're doing the same thing they did with the makeup with Wilfred previous episode. If they're going for bad 70s makeup for him, maybe they were doing bad 80s beard for Mack. When do we get to when do we get to the realm of good prosthetics and makeup effects? Do we have to wait? I mean, by the 90s, they ended up being pretty good, right? We just got to make one more time jump.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, again, a fun episode, but yeah, we don't have any story movement, I think, going forward in this. Coulson, we know, is alive. I also think in some ways the episode might have been undercut a little bit because the leak for the preview for this coming episode before or after dropped online. And unfortunately, at that point, it opens up the shot with Mack and Deke, and I think it was May saying, "Welcome back." So we know at that point everything is going to be safe. We know that nothing big is going to happen. We even see Coulson in the preview in his new looks LMD body. So I don't know if that leak in particular undercut things. At the very least, the opening, I think, interview with Deke and May, at that point, we know everyone's back all right. Yeah? I mean, that was sort of...
honestly speaking, because I didn't see the leak that you're talking about.
Good man.
I mean, that's probably, by accident, just because I'm not big on the internet. But when I had first seen May saying, tell me what happened, I was like, oh God, they killed Mack. Or he decided to stay in the 1980s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the first thing I was thinking. It was like somehow Mac either got caught in the 80s or he's dead.
All right. So yeah, see, the minute when I saw it, I thought it was complete, like everything is okay. But that was that was a good one. Rob, do you got anything to add up? Any specific feels on this particular episode, the totally excellent adventures of Mac and the D?
Well, like you said, it did move the plot along, but what it did do was repair the relationship between Deke and Mac that started earlier in the season with him not being able to take orders or to questioning orders, at first almost killing Malik, then fully on killing Malik, and them dealing with that. And Deke trying to show Mac that he's changed by still behaving in the same way. It was good character work for them.
Right.
Otherwise, yeah, the plot didn't really move forward at all, except, for that. And was that necessary? Maybe not, but then we don't have I think they needed some reason to do the 80s nostalgia before we kick off this next bit that looks like, we're going to be ramping up towards the end. Like you said, it's going to be all downhill from here. And with, we got the stuff with the Inhumans and all that next week. I don't think we're going to have a lot of time to have this kind of fun anymore. And so it was a lot of fun. And I like seeing Deke change his character a little bit while still kind of doing the same thing, and showing that to Mac, because I felt the same way that Mac was. That here you are just doing the same thing, stealing from the future, making it your own, slapping in a little bit of something new on it so you could say that it wasn't, and then him showing that while I'm doing what I know, but I'm using it for not my own purposes. It looks like I am, but it's all a cover. His old behavior was a cover for doing something actually right. And it just took a while for Mac to see that. And it would take a while, because on the surface it does just look like him being a scrounger again. But that's one of the charms of the character too, is he's a survivor, and you get some humor out of it as well. But at a professional level, I would see, like with Mac's headset and losing so much and everything, that he doesn't want to deal with no foolishness.
Yeah.
And now Deke's shown that he's growing up, and he can take orders, and he can, learn something, even if it is his way, because otherwise the character wouldn't be true to himself.
Well, I think that's something that was good to kind of focus on from, of having any meat story in this episode, was how dedicated Deke is to his friends. I mean, every week he's going and looking in on little Mac and his brother, and he's checking in on things. He's trying to create a team, but also he's never been trained. I mean, he's been pretty much recruited. He was sort of let go for a little while in 6 to do his own company, and then they pulled him back in. But his training has been small little pieces on the fly. So, yeah, him trying to create a team, he doesn't know what to do. And, of course, it does give us our standard 80s trope amongst all of the many of the ragtag team of nerds and guys that can't do it, that fail the first time and then just got to learn to believe in themselves and then do the exact same thing, but it succeeds. So I think that was kind of an important thing, but I love the fact of the meat parts that Jeff Ward got to play in with this was holding down to the dedication of friendship, even yelling at Mac about yelling at his team. I can take it, but you leave my team out of it. I mean, that's agent material right there.
Yeah, because that seems like something that, that seems like something that Coulson would do. Like if Fury would have yelled at him, and say, "Oh, your team, blah blah blah," Coulson would be the guy to be like, "Listen, Fury, I've looked up to you for a long time. We've been in this together, since day one. But don't ever talk about my team like that." Yeah,
especially in front of him like that. I that's an excellent comparison right there. I think you're spot on that. All right, well, let's jump in and give a brief hello to everyone who's joining us live on the chat. Look, we've already gone 10 minutes into this, and we haven't said hi to you all. All right, we've got Corey and Deborah live in the chat right now with some real interesting, fun comments here. Looking forward for the 80s fun. Yeah, we've got a whole Easter egg bit we'll dive into. Let's see. Let's see. Corey says, good thing you Max shaved before Yo-Yo saw that beard. Very true. Very true. I think she still would have kissed him, though. I think she still would have gone in on that. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, well, just, a little talk. Most of the stuff that we have there. Also, loving Deke carrying this episode. Devontae Smith in with us also. Hello, Devontae. And also, want to be sure to take this moment and thank everyone that joined us for our live show, our fan show. Corey was definitely there. Devontae was in the chat. But we had Frank in the Rich Room also appearing on camera. Really was a blast to chat with all of you. So I'm looking forward to doing that again at the end of the season. It'll be a blast. Anyway, so let's dive into a little bit of the Deke squad themselves with really, I think, the signature scene of the episode, the take on Don't You Forget About Me, which was hilarious and awesome, and also with a lot of wrong lyrics. I think that was. Do you guys think? Now, when I talked about it in my review, I applied it as a misremembered trope of the misremembered lyrics. You know, the classic is wrapped up like a douche when it's wrapped up like a deuce. And I think there's a whole Friends episode where they go into remembering lyrics the wrong way. And I thought that was the trope that they were playing in. But somebody in the comments had mentioned that he had replaced some of the lines with like talking about Daisy not paying attention to him, and there was a few other things. Do you guys think that he just couldn't remember the lyrics, or was he actually twisting stuff to, I guess, done like you said, sort of make it his own, or Rob, sorry, of making it his own, and putting his own kind of personal spin on that?
Yeah, I think that's what he did. Yeah. He said something about stabbed in the heart, Daisy. So yeah, it was like a song about, I think he was singing it to her, really.
Okay. I kind of like that view there.
That song made him think of Daisy, and he really liked it, and so he decided, again, he slaps his own take on it and then calls it his own. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's fine. It was one of the strongest parts of the episode, was watching him sing, and do like his Weird Al version of it, I guess.
Oh, and the great little Michael Jackson dance moves in the middle of it. It was a sight. And I think, and we had like, really, there was almost like every 80s band trope in there between the various band members from all over the world, the outfits, the lights, the almost glam eye makeup was really was a spectacle. And I think it was beautifully countered with Mack's face dropping as he's watching all of this go on.
Oh, and let's not forget about the drummer that needs to be fired, because for some reason the drummer always needs to be fired. I don't know why, but the drummer just always, it's like, now you either have to get rid of the drummer or the lead singer.
Right. But I love that he was the coke dealer that, well, he's okay. Hey, I didn't know that he had a job. And that's what got him into the band. It's like, yeah, you have the van so you can drive us around. That's how you get in.
I like that he never knows what coke is.
Yeah. 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 Oh,
they never tell him, I don't think.
No, he just looks and shakes his head like, this is ABC. We're not getting into that conversation here.
But you know what? I think I think this episode perfectly illustrates why Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is now on at a later time than it used to be.
Oh, yeah.
Between the blood the cocaine, and there was the line in there about something Deke said about son of a bitch in there somewhere, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this is not for the children.
If they're going to stick them in a 10 o'clock time slot, they're going to make the most out of it, I believe. So I appreciate that with the writers. I think the first time they were put up to 10 o'clock, the opening episode was like all sexy and smoking and like the very beginning of the episode. I was like, they are putting on their mature pants tonight.
Yeah. So, hey, look, it is what it is. It worked for the episode. So that's what counts.
Right. All right. Well, now, of course, survivor-wise, we did find out that not only did Sybil survive and is now using our local computer nerd to get herself built a robot body, but also Coulson survives, as always, definitely falling back on his superpower. Now, what I got from that is they both said at the beginning of the episode, and I think Mack or Deke had said something along the lines overall, when there was an explosion, there was some sort of power surge, and I guess Sybil's connection or digital self got caught up in the wiring, the same as Coulson just migrated to the next computer. Is this part of the Chronicon ability? They kind of glossed over how any of that happened.
Yeah, they just said that they were on hard drives. They didn't necessarily explain the how. It's just like, hey, look, they exploded and now they're on hard drives, and that's how they're able to still exist. Just go with it.
Go with it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like trying to explain every time Jason Voorhees comes back to life. It's just he's been brought back to life with just a lightning bolt. Stuff just happens in those all these 80s tropes. If you think too hard about them, then you enjoy yourself less. And since it was a mostly fun episode, it's and not as the consequences or the stakes aren't really that big, even though they were big for all the surrounding characters. Unfortunately,
right?
Everybody wearing red shirts in this episode. You can give them a pass. I mean, I give them a pass anyway. It was just I don't think they wanted to have to explain it too hard. There's no time to explain all of it. And again, in another jam-packed episode where they're trying to fit all this stuff in there and then have to take another 10 minutes to explain Sybil and Coulson's ability to keep coming back, and that's just too much.
Right.
Yeah. And, and another thing that never was explained, how did Mack have a house?
Yeah. Is that his family's house?
Yeah, but you got to figure if his parents died, I'm pretty sure, depending on what their mortgage looked like, might have went back to the bank, foreclosed on. But not only that, what did he do for money? Because he surely had a lot of beer, buying model cars and stuff. So
just smooth over that part. Just smooth that one.
another 80s trope. A whole year and some change, he was able to go buying beer. We never saw him get up off the couch to go to work at any point.
This was early Amazon that just did deliveries for him. They didn't tie that into. That is an excellent point. And I didn't even catch that it was his family's home. I thought that he had just like rented a place, and then when we see the outside and it's an actual house, I was like, oh, he rented a house. I did ask briefly the same question. How did he do that? But then just went on. But I think falling into these tropes, I think allowed, because the episode does have so many of those 80s tropes, I think it did excuse the lack of explanation. Let's see, in chat, we've got Corey saying, Phil's alive. I'm not asking questions. I'm happy. Devontae, if you read comics, you understand stuff happens. Go with it. Also, they didn't know, does he have a job? Is he working? Maybe a S.H.I.E.L.D. secret bank account that he can tap into. But yeah, I think because the tropes of an alien crash lands and its consciousness gets into your computer, you have to build it a body, is an 80s trope. You know, the just that thing happening that you don't understand, but because it's technology and it's alien or future or tech, you just go with it. I think they were able to lean into those specific tropes, and we forgave it because, like you said, how was he there for a year? It's a total 80s trope. You go away, you disappear, the beard grows out, you know, and then you have to get pulled out of it afterwards. Yeah, that was like weekly on shows in the 80s.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was I like the idea with the job here. How did he get his money? All right, so then we have, of course, Deke. We've got the Deke Squad, a nice ragtag group of individuals, all with their individual set of skills. We get the Chang Gang, which I think is Arcanic Brothers references right there. We've got Olga the Russian, because in the 80s, everything was Russian. There was a Russian bad guy in everything. Though she gets to be on this time, but she does get that great Brigitte Nielsen look. Then we had the drummer, the cokehead, who of course ended up having to be the first one killed. And then God, I can't remember the other girl's name that ended up having that big scene with Mack.
Roxy Glass.
Roxy Glass. Thank you very much. So nice little collection that Deke has gathered together. I like the fact that they're not only agents, but they're a band. What is it that Deke says there? Because it's so obvious, it makes it the perfect cover because you're right up in everyone's face, and therefore nobody will suspect you if you have to go from one town to another town.
Yeah, not high-tech equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it does make sense. I mean, like, you're a secret agent, or at least a spy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah. I mean, like, international spy that everyone knows, but you're so good at being a spy that no one knows you're a spy.
Mm-hmm.
That is definitely 80s.
Yeah,
definitely 80s.
It made me think of the Hanna-Barbera cartoons that always had a team of kids running around as like a band or in a van doing something, just running around solving mysteries and things like that. Not just the A-Team, but like, you know, those old cartoons where it was ridiculous. They just were running around, nobody questioning anything what they did, you know.
Well, you always have that. I mean, you had the Josie the Pussycats,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the classic roam around town. You had the Partridge Family, slightly different, but still the singing band that would then go and have their own little side adventures and stuff like that. But
James
I think
Bond Jr.
James Bond Jr. Perfect call right there. Yeah. And of course the A-Team, which to me, this was the total reference of, because all of the introductions of names was in the complete A-Team logo.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all I'm thinking in the background is Hardy Boys, Corey says there in the chat, use that exact cover. So yeah, singing group right there. Let's see what we have here. April Eckhart in the chat mentions, I assumed Mack rented the place and it was in River's End because they ended up at the lighthouse. Yeah, I think when the ship jumped, they just were right there. I don't think they necessarily. I think they usually end up in the same place when they jump, and then they have to get to the next place.
Not necessarily, because remember when they jumped and left Enoch in the past,
they went all the way to Vegas there.
Yeah.
You were right. You are right.
This is a total accident, but I just looked to my right, literally like a foot away from me, and I found this. I had to pick it up and put it on screen. I'm serious. It was just an accident. I was just sitting there. It was just sitting there. I mean it. I just looked over and saw it there, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to show it. The original VHS copy.
No, that is awesome.
Crazy.
That's a classic you've got to hold on to just because it especially as a VHS copy, that is as timeless 80s as you could possibly get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Nice.
Both of them sitting right there. I don't know why.
Mm-mm.
All right. Well, before we get into our big list of stuff from the 80s that we found throughout the episode, let's talk about the other kind of big interaction, which kind of ends up being the main thrust of this episode. Sybil building an army of robot hunters to go to the lighthouse to steal back the time stream, which is evidently down in the basement after the ship blew up. Everything else is fine, but that's just surrounded by a little bit of concrete. Again, also nice thing about the 80s, you didn't have to look for stuff that hard. You moved something out of the way, and it was right there. So that makes things nice and easy. But yeah, we got some awesome robot action, and especially perfect for Mack, who hates robots.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, and that was the thing. I mean, because his parents turned out to be robots, and now he's got to deal with 80s style robots. Cylon / Short Circuit. In fact, he actually calls one of them Short Circuit.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it had the whole Johnny Five look and everything, and then turned out had it. Sybil had a freaking laser. Shooting out of her Cylon / kit-based head. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, that was.
Thankfully, their laser tech was not that advanced. It only gave, I guess, Deke a slight sunburn. I don't know how it kicked Olga up into the wall and halfway across the room and out.
I mean, well,
Deke's from the future. He might have tougher skin being out with the Kree and all that stuff. So I don't know.
I mean, but then there's also, you got to think about it. It's the 80s. They got to sell the effect. Explosions. We need explosions everywhere. Oh,
it was great. Well, you're right. And this was actually one of the bigger 80s references. And I have to say, it's been referenced in the show before. And I always thought, I slightly remembered it. I was really sure this was just something that Mack had come up with. But the movie Chopping Mall, which Mack brings up back in season 5 or even 4, possibly when or 5 or 6, when he was talking about Beware of Robots, is he brings up, haven't you ever seen Chopping Mall? And this episode is Chopping Mall. Someone brought out actual scenes. It's the robots that come to life, shooting lasers out of their eyes. They look similar, but not exactly like this. This scene where the drummer gets killed, there's a scene very similar to that in the movie. When the lady gets yanked by the side, when the girlfriend gets yanked and then blood spurts out, that's exact it. There's 3 or 4 very specific scenes. So if you guys are interested, track down Chopping Mall. And yeah, it is. This is exactly that episode with more 80s thrown in on top of it.
Yeah, that's the first thing I mean, besides the other references, as soon as I saw them with power tools, I remembered that movie. I was like, yep, this is absolutely Chopping Mall, because Johnny Five and all his buddies, they just used those turrets. Yeah. They weren't walking around with buzzsaws. That was completely an homage to Chopping Mall. I think Red Letter Media did a great review of that movie, and yeah, if you haven't checked it out, it's glorious. It's hilarious, man. It's just every inch of that is just dripping and just bloody gore and stuff. Like that's the other thing about this episode. I just got to give him so much credit for that.
Oh yeah, the close-ups there when you'd suddenly quick zoom up into the face or the head shaking, then the blood just spurts all over. It was.
Yeah, I mean, the camera work, all 80s, the editing, 80s. Like when Mack, finally stops the robot and he's like, "You came back." I was like, I should have never left. He puts out his hand. And, there's like the 5 different shots of them holding hands.
Well, and they did some great bits where they would hold those moments and then hold them for just a little too long, and then have the scene. It's one of my favorites was when Mack was like, "All right, I don't know who and I don't know how, but they're gonna pay." And it does the full pause there, and then Glass is like, "The robots? Yeah, the robots. That's what I meant."
Yeah, man. All right, so I mean, again, not favorite episode of the series or even the season, but still so much fun. I mean, so many laughs to be had. I mean, especially after what Mack had to deal with in the last episode, and plus, the beginning of this episode, I think we needed a little bit of levity.
Yeah.
And I think also because with whatever is about to happen now that we got Nathaniel Mack back, and we don't know whether or not he still has powers.
I hope not. That would seem to be a real cheap and easy way to give him powers. Giving him a taste, and maybe he found another Inhuman and went into that. That I could buy. But if he got permanent Quake powers from just some spinal fluid and glands, I don't know. That seems cheap to me.
I mean, who knows? I mean, I guess we'll talk about the preview for next week in a little while, but yeah, I mean, this episode definitely. I mean, well, one of you guys called it about Nathaniel coming back. I forget which one of you called it, but one of you guys definitely called Nathaniel coming back. I thought it probably wouldn't happen for a couple more episodes,
right?
But yeah, he's here and he's working with the Chronicoms. But it's funny because we already know Sybil is looking to betray him as soon as possible.
Yeah. She doesn't care at all about her allies.
Yeah, she broke out her famous catchphrase about them two being a perfect match or whatever may have you, or so. Yeah. Okay. Corey says. Excuse me. Corey says she called in the previous chat.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. Because I wasn't sure if he was, but yeah, you're right. I remembered somebody saying, and it would make sense that it would be Corey here. All right. Well, let's see. Well, let's get into our list of 80s references. I went on to a giant list with Rareview. I don't mind recovering that, but it went on a lot longer than I thought it was going to.
Okay.
So why don't you guys start out? Rob, do you want to start? Don, do you want to start? Which one of you want to take the lead on this? And then I'll mark up and fill in whatever I have on my stuff as well.
Okay, so obviously Short Circuit.
Yeah. Number 5 is alive.
Yeah. We got Knight Rider.
Mm-hmm. And those were the eyes on the robots.
But also Battlestar Galactica as well, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Right. Rambo. Yeah. Let's see.
Very nice.
Let's see here. Because it's Bridget Nielsen, do we also count Rocky in there as well? Because
you can count Rocky in that. No, that's a total. Rambo and Rocky, same actor, but they are very different shows. So I think that they are fair references.
All right. Let's see here. Obviously, music. Because we got "Walk Like an Egyptian."
Right.
We got
is it Here I Am Again?
Yeah, Here I Go Again.
Here I Go Again, thank you.
Yeah. Let's see here. Ay.
Someone's got a train.
Sorry.
That's all right. I had somebody just blare music right before I clicked onto here. I was just glad. Otherwise, I'll be hearing techno in the background throughout this entire discussion. So I'm glad that didn't go on.
Well, I'm surprised you guys didn't hear the fireworks. People are still doing fireworks. Yay. Let's see here. Other 80s references.
All right. Well, you think about that, Rob. You got a list of stuff there?
I got a couple of things. Right from the beginning, like you had the guy working for Feldman Electronics, Corey Feldman.
Nice. Nice.
The guy, of course, that came in, the 80s dick with the shirt, right, with the thing tied around. It's like every 80s dick in every 80s movie, from Revenge of the Nerds to Better Off Dead. All those guys are always in there. War Games, the computer talking to him, saying, can you help me? Yes or no. Very, very much War Games with Matthew Broderick. Kit the Car was also kind of like the Battlestar Galactica thing. That's what I thought of. I didn't watch the old Battlestar Galactica. I only watched the new one, the newer one.
That's okay. The new one is amazing. That's all you need.
In the background of a scene, and it's the only reason I know this is because we had an Atari 2600 when we were a kid, and I could hear the crappy version of Pac-Man playing in the background.
Ooh, I missed that one. Nice.
Yeah, it was everybody that was excited to get Pac-Man when they were a kid and thought it was going to be like the arcade, and it turned into be this awful. And so I'll never forget that sound that it makes. That it's just like Pac-Man, but not Pac-Man. Of course, Max Headroom with Coulson in the screen. I was a little upset that they didn't have him. They had the cuts, but they didn't have his voice change. Unless that would have been too close to copyright infringement. I don't know. But
parody reference.
Coulson just being going like, like all of a sudden, that would have just been great.
Yeah. I was honestly disappointed that they didn't do that.
I did actually think for a second that Roxy Glass was actually Susanna Hoffs from the Bangles. Until they showed her close up, I really thought that she was the singer from the Bangles. Swayze's Bar is easy, Roadhouse. That's a 90s movie, I think. No, wait, Roadhouse is an 80s movie, isn't it?
Yeah, late 80s, yeah.
So yeah, Swayze's Bar. And then headbands, like Deke having his headband. Everybody had that stuff on. And even, I think that's about it. There was a reference to Genesis.
Yeah, that was one of the other girls or songs or something that he was. Yeah,
that was one of the girls at the bar.
Right. Okay.
That's right. That's all I got that hasn't been covered already.
Well, let's see. We've got a few here brought up the chat. Pabaro mentions Doctor Who. Yes, Exterminate, Total Daleks. With the robots there. Corey mentions, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me. Total cliche dialogue. Haley's Tuss mentions Roxy apparently was the only musician of Deke's squad. She had the whole Deek squad as
yeah. The drummer getting killed. To me, that was an obvious reference to all the drummers that died in This Is Spinal Tap.
Yeah. Perfect. I think you got a lot of those. Let's see. I also had pulled up since Sybil was asking our computer nerd to make her a body. Weird Science.
Yes.
Which also had Anthony Michael Hall, who appeared as Kitson on Fear and Loathing on the Planet of Kitson. And also apparently Robert Downey Jr. Somebody had brought that up. It's been a while since I've seen that.
Yeah, Robert. He was actually one of the bullies.
Yeah. So there we go. Little bit of Stark reference there also. Let's see. Uncle Marcus's house looked exactly like the Back to the Future house.
Yeah.
I don't know if it actually was. Or they just found one that looked like it. But especially considering this is a different time stream and he's checking in, was very much like Marty checking in on his girlfriend. So, the members only jacket on Deke. You were not anyone in the 80s unless you had a members only jacket. They were everywhere. I had a small one. It was also gray. I wore it a lot. Let's see. We mentioned the A-Team font. Let's see. Olga Pachenko. We were mentioning all that. You got the Max Headroom. A lot of 80s horror stuff. Now, Mack has a line after he shoots Sybil and says, "More metal for the scrap heap." That is from something. I just don't know what it was, because that's totally familiar with me. If anybody in the chat or later on who watches in the archives, if you remember that line and know what it's from, please let us know. Let me know, because I can't find out what it is, but I swear to God I've heard that before. Let's see. What else do we have? Lasers. Oh, Mack is the sax guy. Every other 80s band has a big, cool saxophone player. Whether it be the guy who does in the Still Believe song from Lost Boys, classic 80s sax right there. Also, Glenn Fry's You Belong to the City. I learned how to play that myself. Let's see. So I think that hit most of, I think, before all of us. I'm sure there's probably more that were stuck in there that we couldn't catch. You guys think of anything else that didn't come up there?
I mean, well, you know what? If you wanted to kind of stretch, you could say Top Gun, because of the outfits that the agents wore. They look kind of like the flight suits from Top Gun.
Okay. Oh, Haley's Tusk mentions in the chat, Jeff's outfit was straight out of Loverboy's Working for the Weekend music video. Nice call. Yeah. Let's see. Haley's also mentioned. Jeff Ward said they were supposed to do Dire Straits' Money for Nothing. So he practiced it for a month. When he went to Jed Meaden's house to record, they changed the song. Oh, that's so mean. That's so mean. I get it. They do that. You know, that's exactly. We did mention War Games. Dun, dun, dun.
I was actually surprised that there were no Back to the Future references. I mean, because you got to figure 1982 and 83, the DeLorean was actually out. Deke was making money. Like, they could have had him show up to Mack's place in a DeLorean.
That would have been perfect. That would have been perfect. See, now there's all this stuff they could have hit in. But again, like we're saying, this is episode 7. This is the Wednesday of the season. So, if we're looking at this, like an arc on a ship, I've got to be sure this goes inside of the frame here. You're going up at a power and a point. You do that little stall before you slow it in and then start heading straight down for the ground. And I think that's where we are. I think we are in that restful pause before we start accelerate towards the ending. Because, Mack had some emotional hits. We need to take a moment with that. Maybe they felt that we needed a bit of a breather before we got into things. So I understand the motivation to do it. If you're going to have a filler episode, this is the way to do it. You make it entirely entertaining on its own. But I mean, at the end, Sybil's little robot gets away, gets the time stream, in, to me, a hilarious back and forth of going down the steps on the robot there. I thought that was awesome. And delivers it to Nathaniel Malick, who obviously you got to have a Malick as a bad guy. We've gone through Gideon. We just did Wilford. Now we got to have Nathaniel. And this seems to be setting up our acceleration towards Endgame, because, and I mean that, I say that for a reason, because next week from our previews, we're heading to Afterlife. We're heading up with Zhang. Yo-Yo is going to train with Zhang. And Nathaniel's somehow involved. I mean, what is going to happen now? Where are they even going? Someone take it and run. Tell me what's happening.
Yeah, and this is obviously before her run-in with Daniel Whitehall. Because no scars, which means she's not dead yet. I mean, there is a possibility of getting a DH Kyle McLaughlin as well. So, we're looking at we're looking at possibly them still being in the 80s, but just before Daniel Whitehall is able to get out of jail. Who knows? Yeah, so this is one of those things where, who knows what things could be possibly changed. And you know what? There was something that was mentioned in the chat as well from Devontae Smith. It says Back to the Future, the family car got better after they changed the past.
Ah, nice call there. That's very true. And he does, because he does specifically mention, God, car looks a lot better than it did. Than I remember. So yeah, that was an excellent run. And also, in the chat, Haley's Touch, did you mention the handshake from Predator between Deke and Mack? Yes, Don did bring that up with the big slow-mo 5 angle. Let's get the shot of all of that there. But yeah, I'm kind of excited. I don't think they're going to DH Kyle McLaughlin for this. I would love if they did, but I don't know if they want to take that additional expense in order to introduce him. I don't know time-wise. Is this before because you're right. She doesn't seem cut up or anything like this. So this would be before Daisy's birth. So I don't know. Maybe what's his name? Kyle McLaughlin. Maybe he's not even. They're not even an item yet. Maybe they haven't met yet.
Very possible. Very possible. But I don't think she went into Afterlife until after they met, though.
Right. I don't think so either. Well, again, but this is one of the effects that we're going to see with all of the time changes, is because it's the snowball effect, it's the mandala effect, it's the butterfly effect. Call it what you will. This, once you start to do some changing around, it starts to become everything starts to snowball out. So perhaps something has occurred, because if Nathaniel learned from Whitehall while Whitehall's in jail about how to attack Inhumans, perhaps that's what Nathaniel's doing, and that's what's forced Jane to create Afterlife earlier than she thought she should. Is the threat is coming faster. Silva mentions Daisy was born in 88, right? I think that's right. So this would be, this is what, 84 now, because they're there for 20 months. So yeah, this would still be 4 years or so prior to Daisy being born.
Right.
Yeah, because I think she's supposed to be 32 on the show.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you know what? One of the biggest questions that we really, really need answered, that still was not answered in this episode, where the hell is Fitz?
Fitz is working on another show, and they only got him for 3 weeks.
What?
I'm totally making that up, but I think he was working on another show at the time. That's one of the reasons. I think he was being shared between a BBC show and this one. But I haven't confirmed any of that. That's rumors I've heard from chat and various things, but I haven't seen anything myself.
You know what? And this is something that someone had brought up at the end of last chat, that we totally forgot about. And thank you, Silver Surfer, for bringing that up. Where are Flint and Piper?
They're in 2020, man.
Yeah, but you know what? Shouldn't they have been on the ship at the end of weren't they on the ship at the end of last season?
Let's see. They had to use Flint in order to put the monoliths back together, and that was before the big missile and before the attack, before May died and Gemma showed up. So I'm assuming Piper is probably with Flint. They should have gotten on the ship, but maybe they got sent back to base prior to, or I don't know, because once they've left the ship, Yeah, because Flint got sent off before the whole final thing happened. I think he got sent away because you didn't see him in the final bits of the episode. Right?
Well, the thing about it is, the question is, does Flint actually exist? Because wasn't Flint created by the fear dimension or something like that?
Yes, he was created by using the monolith's ability to create whatever it is that you can imagine.
So he might have faded from existence, but still doesn't explain what happened to Piper.
Right.
You know.
Let's see, Devontae, they were on different ships because Piper needed to get Flint's knee fixed. That's what I thought. Yes, they did go into two different places. So I'm assuming, I doubt they would have brought Flint back for like half of an episode in such a critically important point. And not have him just fade right then after any kind of destruction or creation. Considering that Sarge existed on his own without the monolith for a couple hundred years or something when it got changed back, he should probably still exist. But I don't know. You're right. That is one of those things that are left out. But I'm sure that once we at least get back to the current time frame, we should find out what happened with Piper and Flint. I don't think that they would leave those plot points just floating out there.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, we get our conclusion with that. This is the end game.
This is the end game after all. So pretty much, you guys feel we're going to continue to jump through time up here to the end. Nathaniel is going to be our bad guy for the remainder of the season, or at least a good chunk episodes. Hydra is going to stay with us working with Chronicom. So kind of a little bit more of what we've seen before, just ramped up with action. Is that where you think we're going? Or do you guys have any, I don't know, off the wall speculation? Also in the chat, if you've got any ideas, throw something out. We'll discuss it. Of where you think that they're going to go.
So I think Nathaniel is going to wind up being kind of our Gamora / Nebula.
Mm-hmm.
Where he kind of figures out that he is on the wrong side, and I think he's going to sacrifice himself, destroying the Chronicoms in order to set things right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, okay. I think he's going to realize, like the whole Hydra thing and this whole lust for power really just wasn't worth it.
Oh, so you think he might turn at the end and end up helping the team against the Chronicoms?
Yes, I do.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
An unexpected shift for him, but I would go with it.
I mean, because, you got to think about it like this, right? He's already said, like, look, I'm not like my father and brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I dabbled in the family business, but, I'm not all about Hydra. So for him, I think that was the tell that, all right, maybe, yes, he was raised by an evil bastard, but maybe this might be the redemption that he well, not redemption he's seeking, but maybe there might be some redemption for him just for the fact he doesn't fully buy into Hydra as it is.
Okay.
And then I think once he figures out what Sybil's game plan is and the fact that, he's nothing but a pawn, I think he's going to possibly wind up sacrificing himself to save humanity and be like, hey, look, I'm sorry for what I did, but here you can finally say that a Mack did something good for the world.
Okay, that would be sort of a nice thing, sort of redeem the family name in a sense there. Okay, I like that. Rob, you got any off the wall theories or ideas of where we might be heading?
Well, one, it's an end game kind of theory. Like,
okay.
I don't mean Avengers Endgame, but like very like last kind of thing makes me think that like Coulson talking to Sybil about sacrifice, like real sacrifice. It's one of the reasons what makes us, special and why you don't see it. And we actually, we pay a cost. And I think since this is time travel and a lot of things have to get rewrited, that there's so many things that have gone wrong that have to be fixed, that you could see yourself in some of these, at least a couple of these characters could find themselves in a situation where they will no longer exist or be remembered for fixing the things that have to be fixed to save everyone. At least a couple of people might have to make that sacrifice. The fallen of S.H.I.E.L.D. and they, the only ones who might remember are maybe a couple. I feel like Daisy's probably safe. But I think everybody else could end up being in a situation because somebody has to be the memory, right? But I don't think that means that anybody else is really safe. And I think that fixing everything else might take precedence over everything else. And that, we might, some of these people might have to say goodbye in that way to reverse everything back.
Sure. As long as it's not Fitz. Do not kill Fitz. You've already killed him. I have fear and concerns there, to be perfectly honest.
Whedonverse doesn't usually let couples survive things, so
no, they don't.
I am. I'm definitely thinking that either Mack or Yo-Yo could die at the end of the series or just before the end of the series. The way that things are looking, I would think it would probably be Mack. I'm expecting that one of those two is going to go.
Okay. All right. We are not starting a Deadpool, by the way, chat. Don't worry about that. We're not guessing on who's going to die. We don't want anyone to die. We just know how this show tends to go, and Whedon's especially. All right. Let me just go through the chat here and a few different ideas. Haley has mentioned, I think Flint needs to return for Deke to have someone that has his experiences. Fair, someone to relate, because he is kind of a lonely guy. Who mentions that? Someone did. I'll get to that. Let's see. What's going to happen to the S.H.I.E.L.D. team Deke made? I don't know. Maybe they're the new Lighthouse team. They looked all very professional at the end. Mack's definitely done his work. But yeah, will we see them again or not? I have no idea. Let's see. A couple of times Haley's mentioned, a couple of times Zeke has talked about how lonely he is. Right. Everything he knows is gone. So yeah, if Flint came back, he would have someone to kind of have a comparison of experiences. We've got 20 days, or she wrote it was like 24 days until they jump again, which sounds great, except that I think they thought they had more time and then stuff went wrong. And then that's when the Zephyr jumped. So do they have 24 days? Can you really trust that at this point?
As far as they know, the Chronicom should be gone.
Right. Let's see. Devontae mentions Piper said she knows how the season ends during her panel for Wizard World, so she is probably around. Good. She deserves to be around. Yeah, does Nathaniel know his brother tried to sacrifice him? Gideon should still be alive. Well, we did see Gideon before. I don't know if he is... I lost power. I don't know if he's still alive. Did he tell him? Oh, well, I don't think any of that happened because Wilfred never died. So there was no reason for Gideon and Nathaniel to do the whole ceremony thing like his father did. So I don't think that betrayal part ever happened, though it could come up. I was expecting that to maybe be part of the conversation between Daisy and Nathaniel when Daisy was captured, but that never ended up happening.
They didn't show Sousa for the next episode either, did they?
No, we didn't. They're trying to cover as many people as they can. Somebody's just got to stay on the bus or stay on the Zephyr and watch everything. Let's see. Jim McClinton says he likes your Punisher t-shirt.
Thank you.
Awesome shirt. April's convinced Enoch will die. He'll sacrifice himself for his new family. I could totally see that happening. That's a good call there.
I mean, he's already done that before, though.
He did do that at what, 5.5, in mid 5 there. So that's true. It could be a repetitive bit right there. We know that he has it in him for sure. April says Fitzsimmons will survive because fans will riot if they don't. I completely agree. But the show's also like, yeah, but we're over with. So
yeah, what's it going to matter now?
Yeah. Corey also agrees. Don't kill anyone. I
don't want anyone to die, but I mean, like, look, you know, the Chronicoms have to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone has. I think that the only way that that's going to happen, someone's going to have to sacrifice themselves. And look, as much as Mack loves Yo-Yo, I think that there might still be a part of him that feels as though, like, hey, my parents died. I got nothing to live for. You know, I'll sacrifice myself. Like I said, I would think it would be Nathaniel just to kind of clear.
Well, I like that sort of healing the name right there. I like that idea.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Well, I think that's the fun thing about the show is even halfway through, we can only slightly guess on where they're going to go, because the one thing that this show does so well is it will zig and it will zag and it will bring you to a place you never expected to go. But when you look at the way there, it all makes perfect sense. So I am really excited to see where we're going to end up with this. Well, heck, I think we covered everything. I think we got it all. Thanks, everyone, so much for joining us in the chat. Thanks, obviously, to Rob and Don here for joining me here. Every week, we, of course, do this show Friday nights at 7 o'clock. We're just over the show hump, so we've got 6 more episodes left, and it looks like we're going to go straight through without a break. So really, really excited about that. But, of course, also slightly sad because then it'll all be over. But it is going to have to wrap us up for now. Thank you again for joining us. Don, why don't you tell folks where they can find you?
Well, mostly you can find me here every Friday on Fans of S.H.I.E.L.D., but if not there, you can also find me at my channel, Don of Ice and Fires. Boom, right there. And then also you can find me on Twitter at iDonWillie. It's IDonWilli. So, yeah. Rob, take it away.
Yeah, you can find me here on Fridays doing this. And, sorry. And on Twitter, you can find me at reviews_gun.
Wonderful, wonderful. Actually, before we go, let me cast last couple of little mentions. Alias asked, what are the odds the final episode connects them at least to Disney Plus? We would like them to be high. I don't know if that is actually true. Also, who mentioned, Corey, worried that Sousa, Daniel, might sacrifice himself. He's already said that he'll risk his life to keep Hydra out of S.H.I.E.L.D. That is a definite possibility. I don't know. I like him in with this team, but who knows where they're going to go. He's definitely going to end up in New York at some point, I think. But we're going to go ahead and say goodbye now. I'm, of course, D. This is my channel, D's Reviews. You can catch me Wednesday nights with my main Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. review. And, of course, here every Friday night for fans of S.H.I.E.L.D. We've got some exciting shows coming forward that may get their own fan treatment. We're talking about The Boys. That comes out in the beginning of September. So look out for that. We'll let you know more as time progresses. In the meanwhile, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you all next week. Bye-bye.